Once upon a time, there was a dense forest in the outskirts of Killeen, Texas. The forest was known to be haunted by the spirits of the deceased who were buried there. The locals avoided the forest, and it was considered a taboo to enter the woods after sunset. One day, a group of teenagers decided to explore the forest at night. They were curious about the rumors and wanted to experience the thrill of being in a haunted forest. They entered the woods with flashlights and started walking on the narrow path. The trees were tall and dense, and the moonlight barely penetrated the canopy. The only sound that could be heard was the rustling of leaves and the occasional hooting of an owl. As they walked deeper into the woods, they started feeling uneasy. They felt like they were being watched, and the air around them felt heavy. Suddenly, they heard a loud scream that echoed through the forest. They froze in their tracks, and their flashlights flickered. They looked around, but they couldn't see anything. They thought it was just their imagination and continued walking. After a few minutes, they heard the scream again. This time it was louder, and it sounded like it was coming from behind them. They turned around, and they saw a figure standing in the distance. It was a woman dressed in a white gown, and her hair was disheveled. She was staring at them, and her eyes were glowing in the dark. The teenagers were terrified, and they started running in the opposite direction. They could hear the woman's laughter behind them, and it was getting closer. They ran as fast as they could, but they couldn't shake off the feeling that they were being followed. They could hear footsteps behind them, and they knew that they had to keep running. Finally, they reached the edge of the forest, and they collapsed on the ground. They were panting, and their hearts were racing. They looked back, but they couldn't see anything. They knew that they had escaped the haunted forest, but they also knew that they would never forget the creepy events that had happened there. The next day, the teenagers went to the police station and reported what had happened. The police searched the forest, but they couldn't find any evidence of the woman or the screams. The locals warned them that they should never enter the forest again, and they should respect the spirits of the dead. From that day on, the teenagers never spoke about the haunted forest again. They knew that they had experienced something that was beyond their understanding, and they didn't want to risk going back. The forest remained a mystery, and the locals continued to avoid it after sunset. This story is a work of fiction, but it is based on the many spooky stories that have been told about haunted forests around the world. It is a reminder that we should always respect the dead and the spirits that may still linger among us. We should never take the supernatural lightly, and we should always be careful when exploring the unknown.